Hi, my name is Don Bowman, and here at Agilicus we've been working on hardening the security of the web applications of our customers and the ones that we've written ourselves. And there's a few things I've learned about that I thought I would share with you today. And while I was learning it, I learned some other things that I wasn't as happy about the sorry state of security of many of the sites that I use on a daily basis. So I'm going to talk today about some of the basics of web app security. And I'm going to talk about how you would assess whether a specific website is secure or how secure it is, and about how you would go about hardening it. And I would tell you, as a consumer, how you can check, for example, your bank, your email, or other sites, and then maybe give an update to the people that run those as to whether you're happy or not with the state of security they have. So the first is I'm going to introduce a couple of tools that I use. And there's lots of great tools out there, so these aren't necessarily the only ones. But there's a few that I like to talk about. The first is a website called internet.nl. And it's run by a set of volunteers and the Dutch government. And they do a great job of the very basics. You go there and you type in your domain name, and it tells you some things about a standard called DNSSEC, which you should enable if you can, about whether you're IPv6 enabled. It also tells you some great stuff about your email security, which not a lot of other sites do. Specific things like DKIM, DMARC, and SPF. As a consumer, these are how you prevent spam or prevent someone from taking over your email. This is a very, very simple test to do. You go to internet.nl, you type in an arbitrary domain name, it gives you a little score, it takes about 10 seconds. Highly recommended. But let's get into a little bit more detail. So there's two aspects of security that I've focused on. So the first one is brought to us by the great people at Mozilla, and they have a tool called Observatory. And the Observatory allows you, again, to enter in a domain name, and it tests three main things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The first is we talk about something called content security policy. We sometimes shorten that to CSP. And the content security policy, this is something that a lot of people don't realize. When you go to your website, you go to some website, so you as a consumer, you type in www.cats.com. And you end up at some site, and inside it, there's a server called www. But they also have other servers that serve, for example, the images, the CSS, etc. And your browser fetches all those, and it doesn't know that those are even related. It sees www.cats.com, it sees images.cats.com. But also, because they're advertising funded, they send you to a set of sites that deliver ads. And these are different websites. And they may also use a technology called a CDN, Content Distribution Network. This sends you to a set of other sites around the world for different pieces of the web page. And also, of course, because privacy is dead, there's a whole set of trackers that come in. And they all have their own domain names. And your browser slurps all this up and displays it all to you. And while it's displaying it or acting on it, there's a set of risks. And this is what content security policy is about governing. And this site is how the security is driven. It decides what it's going to allow, which is how it protects itself against these third parties, the ads, the tracking, etc. And you see in the content security, it's got a set of rules for what to do with CSS, what to do with fonts, images, scripts, a whole pile of things that run inside your browser. And it has a set of simple rules. It can say self. Don't load any CSV unless it came from me. You go to www.cats.com, the only CSS your browser will load will be from www.cats.com. The same for fonts and so on. And this is a simple seatbelt to prevent something going awry. They load a tracking script from here, it turns and loads something, and that loads something, and down the chain somebody does something malicious. As soon as I can run content inside your browser on that page, I can watch your keystrokes, I can see you enter your password, a bunch of things you don't want. The second type of security that we talk about that the Mozilla Observatory shows us is called cross-site scripting. And you may have heard of things like clickjacking. That's where this comes in. There's also MIME type issues. So MIME type is the type of a document. So somebody sends you a CSV, and then you open it, and it's opened by Excel, and something bad happens, or they lie about what it is. This is where this type of protection comes in. And the third main one that we talk about is called cross-origin request, and it's usually called CORS. Is what people talk about. And this is really for APIs. So this is saying once something's in your browser and running, maybe we had an API here and you're allowed to post back home with your comments, your votes on the favorite cat. Where's the browser allowed to send stuff? So a script that comes from here, is it allowed to only send back there, or can it post arbitrary data over here? And sometimes people talk about that as exfiltration. So this is something they really want to watch. Where's your browser sending data without you knowing? That's what CORS is all about. And if you're really worried about all this, I'm talking about all these things, there's a really great tool that I would recommend you look at. It's called Privacy Badger. This is by the great folks at the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and using a little bit of AI and machine learning, it figures out which things are tracking you or intruding on your privacy, and they block it or allow you to block it. It's all up to you. So the third site that I talked about that I use a lot is SSL Labs. So this is run by the good folks at Qualys, and TLS or SSL is the encryption. It's how the data from here to here is private. And unfortunately, over the years, there have been a few flaws that have been introduced in that. And sometimes the people run these servers, they forget to update them. And then you end up with something that isn't as secure as you think. And it's a really simple test. Again, you just enter your domain name and it gives you a score. So this one gives you a score from 0 to 100. And it's not as security focused. It is somewhat, but it's also focused around availability and how modern it is. And sort of anything over 60 is probably pretty good on this one. The second one here, it gives you a letter grade. And you really want all the sites you go to be an A+, obviously. But I would say if you're anything south of a C, you really should be quite worried. And then the Qualys one, it gives you a score. It gives you a letter score and a number out of 100. Here, you really want to be an A. If there's any reason that it's less than an A, it would have to be because the site owner knows they have some very legacy clients accessing it that don't support more modern encryption. But really, that's what you want to see there before you're sending your parameters back and forth. So I've talked a little bit about the web app security, and I've given you a bit of education on it. Now I'm going to give you a task. Take your top couple of websites that you use that you think security would be a concern for you. Your bank would be a good one. Maybe where you do your taxes, anything that's got financial or personal information, and type it in. Just go to observatory.mozilla.org, type in the domain, and see what it gives you for a score. And if you think it could be improved, if you think they could do a better job, maybe put the comments down below and say which site you tried and how you think it could be improved. More importantly, email the owner of that site and say, hey, I'm your customer and I'm voting with my wallet. I demand better security. I'm worried that I'm going to get compromised through you, and that's not acceptable to me. Anyway, thanks very much. That's what I've learned about web app security, and I hope you learned something today too. Bye-bye.